Now, welcome to a weekend ramble where I think the topic today is just going to be Disney.
Yes, but kind of about some of the hardships it seems Disney is facing right now and what that could mean. Bob Iger is facing new challenges at Disney. He had a rough quarter for Disney Plus. I mean, he's back, but he had financial news to break that was not so happy.
Bob's back and he's got bad news.
Well, Bob Chapek was apparently incredibly unpopular with creatives and left Disney in this financial bind. That's why they bought.
That's why we're here.
That's why Iger's back. I mean, many of the company's revenue sources had been disrupted by the pandemic, and the shift to streaming was supposed to be like the shining light, but Disney Plus still hasn't reached profitability.
I thought it was going to take a couple years for them, or that's what they said.
Yes, that is what they said.
Okay.
The company just revealed that they had their first ever streamer loss.
So they're going backwards.
They just lost 2.4 million subscribers.
That's going backwards.
Yes. Part of the problem is 3.8 million subscribers unsubscribed from Disney Plus Hotstar in India.
Okay.
So there was a gain in subscribers everywhere else, but a huge loss. I mean, the quarterly loss was 2.4, but they lost 3.8 just from India.
So why did they lose so many in India?
There's a couple of reasons. First off, HBO was using Disney Hotstar.
What?
Yeah. Services must be limited out there or something, but yeah, HBO was actually going through Disney Hotstar, and they're starting to pull their content away from that. Maybe they're thinking about doing their own thing there.
I like the name Disney Hotstar.
Whatever. But they also had an outage issue during a very important cricket match. Cricket is like the sport in India.
It's like football in America, I would say, or soccer everywhere else in the world.
But the biggest problem they had, the service lost Indian Premier League cricket matches. That's like saying in football
you lost the NFL.
ESPN lost football.
Yeah, you lost the NFL.
I mean, if other sports are there, yes, but if you subscribe to ESPN for one sport and they lost it, are you going to stay? No. So yeah, they lost cricket.
Okay.
That's hitting them. That hit them hard. Clearly, you can
clearly
see that hit them pretty hard.
I believe there's 1 billion people living in India, so technically 3 million is a fraction.
3.8.
It's still technically a fraction of the number of people, but I'm not saying that's not a big number, but
that's still that
well,
hurts.
Yeah.
That's their first big loss.
Well, no, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, parks right now are nickel and diming customers to offset some of their excess costs of the Disney Plus ambitious programming, while the innovations and new attractions just haven't been prioritized. We've seen it. We've seen a lot of services. We've heard about a lot of services that park frequenters are used to getting, and they just took those away, or they're charging extra for them.
We watched a video the other day, the top 10 things that Disney is taking away.
There were a lot of really cool services
a lot of
that aren't offered
interesting
anymore.
little perks that you're like, wow, that would have been nice. I can see why you're upset that they don't do that anymore. Like delivering packages to your room or something. If you buy something somewhere at the park, they take it back to your room, assuming you're staying.
If you're staying within a Disney hotel, they will take it and they would send it to your room for you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that was a really nice perk. My sister likes to try to go to the parks. She tries. It's not always happening, but she tries to go to them once a year, and she really misses that perk because she would buy Christmas presents. She bought me a really nice paper fan, and she just had it transported back to her room, so she didn't have to worry about carrying it around and breaking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got it at Epcot. It was really, really pretty. I still have it. You've never seen it.
I still have it. Well, good. It's really, really, really pretty, but I threw it away. It's a great gift, but I didn't want it.
There's also the debt for 20th Century Studios that's still looming over the company, even with the success of Avatar: The Way of Water and the promise of sequels.
No, not the promise. They're coming.
Oh, yeah, they're coming.
It's more than a promise.
And Lucasfilm hasn't had a Star Wars movie in the theaters for over 3 years, with the next opportunity said to be 3 Christmases away or something.
What's that mean in the theater? Like Star Wars movie?
Movies? I think they used to make money on those.
Oh.
And then they made them not so good. And now they're like, we have to fix this.
Yeah.
I mean, Marvel's only billion-dollar grossing movie since Avengers Endgame was co-produced by Sony Pictures, and they got a majority of the shared profit.
No, interesting. I never even thought about the fact that Sony would be
Sony,
getting money from No Way Home.
Well, they own the character.
Yeah, well, yeah. Own the rights to the character.
Yeah. So, yep. Sony got the majority of the profits from that. The Disney Animation and Pixar productions have either skipped theaters entirely or had like really short runs at the box office. So it's really not been smooth sailing. Like,
you have this
Lightyear wasn't huge for them like they hoped it would be. Strange World was in the theater for, what, a week?
Was it a week?
I don't know.
Well, there's this kind of strange thing going on where something hits the theater and like 3 weeks later, it's not necessarily 3 weeks, but like within a month and a half, it's on Disney Plus. So if it's not something I want to see right now, why not just wait?
Exactly. I mean, it used to be that you were so afraid of the spoilers that you're like, I have to see this movie before it comes out on disc, or I'm going to miss out.
But not even just that, but there was once upon a time where it would take, I don't know, 6 months for a movie to kind of hit, if not a year to hit, coming out on VHS.
VHS.
Or maybe hitting HBO or something. I think it was usually about a half a year to hit a VHS and then another half a year later, a year after to come out to cable. So, you were waiting a while, unless you were going to the theater.
Yeah. Bob Iger certainly has his work cut out for him. He has given himself until the end of 2024 to right the course of the company before a new successor comes to take over. Some good news is Disney's annual revenues are up by 8% compared to last year. Park revenues are up between 21 and 25%. The streaming operating loss is narrowing from $1.5 billion to $1.1 billion.
Jeez.
I know. But it's sad because park revenues are probably up because of the nickel and diming. Not because more people are going. I don't know.
Oh,
I have no idea what the attendance is looking like at the park right now. I know that we've heard that the Galactic Star Cruiser has had trouble filling rooms.
Lots of trouble,
and made some deals to try and fill rooms. But in the quarterly call, Iger has reaffirmed his commitment to ESPN, which is not for sale because there were rumors that they were going to be selling ESPN.
Yeah.
Disney is actually now setting up 3 divisions for their content. One for sports, ESPN, ESPN Plus. One for entertainment, which includes all direct-to-consumer streaming efforts, and one for the parks, which are at a risk of lagging behind their peers. Like, their innovations, they're just not putting enough imagination in that spark of wonder into the parks that they used to, so much so that Universal has announced 2 new mini-parks, and they're catching up.
Doesn't surprise me.
Universal's got some good ideas. One of the parks they're building is literally just for, like, families with young kids, so everything at the park is geared and themed towards them. The other park is going to be all horror-themed because their Universal Horror Nights around Halloween do so well. So you'll have another mini park that's all Halloween horror.
I mean, part of the problem is that we've discussed before for, like, us, for example. We live in the middle of the country. We don't live close to either of the Disney, Disneyland or Disney World. So just getting there is going to be expensive. And then you look at the prices when you get there, and then you hear about them cutting back, and maybe people aren't having the best experiences. And it's like, if I'm going to take a major vacation, am I going to go to Disney?
It's a hard choice.
Yeah.
And Universal is becoming a better option these days.
Well, I mean, if you're going to Universal, you can do both, essentially. If you're going to go to one, you can kind of hit the other. But my point is, like, to just go to Disney, to just do that is not cheap. So
no, especially for a family.
Exactly. So if you're going to take one vacation, like, again, if you're going to take one big vacation, you got to look at Disney and say, well, I could probably go somewhere cheaper and probably have a better time. Because they're not nickel and diming me for everything or taking away all these perks that you used to give.
I mean, on the subject of both the direct-to-consumer model and theatrical, he reiterated that providing content for theaters will remain a high priority, while they continue to shoot the goal for making Disney Plus profitable by the end of next year. The service at this time has 161.8 million subscribers, making the gains in the United States and Canada despite the drawbacks from India. Hulu's reached 48 million subs. ESPN Plus is only a few thousand subscribers away from hitting 25 million. Iger also announced 3 sequels to animated movies that each made over $1 billion.
Shocking.
Toy Story, Frozen, and Zootopia, along with new Avatar attraction for the Disneyland park.
Lean in heavily into Avatar, especially, I think, after A Way of Water, or The Way of Water, whatever it is.
Because despite all of the naysayers on the internet beforehand, everyone's saying it wasn't going to be worth it, it wasn't going to look good, it wasn't going to be this or that. It made lots of money, and it was beautiful.
It's like, what, $2.2 billion, I think, right now? So
in the park, what they do with the Avatar attractions, is they capture the magic of being on Pandora, the beauty of that environment, which is what drew you to the movies in the first place.
Yeah.
All right, despite all of these business initiatives to put Disney on course, though, Bob Iger has made tough decisions to announce major layoffs and to scale back on spending. The current plan is to cut down $5.5 billion in spending. $2.5 billion of which will be for general operating costs, and $3 billion will be in content costs. And they're laying off 3% of the company, which is about 7,000 people. Yep.
Why doesn't Iger just take a pay cut and save some of those people?
I don't know.
Sure.
I feel bad for all 7,000 people losing their jobs. That's horrible.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the spending cut plan is kind of unclear. They're not sure where exactly this content cut is coming from. Bob Iger did promise he's going to be leaning harder into Star Wars.
But not Marvel.
No, he kind of promised that too.
Well, we've heard Marvel is cutting back. Feige himself was
Feige
talking
said
about...
he's cutting back, but that doesn't mean that Disney wants them to, I guess.
Well, I mean, I don't know that Feige gets to make that decision so much, right? Mm-hmm. If Papa Disney says make more Marvel, I don't think Feige gets to say no.
I think that there's a balance that they're trying to strike there. I mean, how many Marvel projects came out that everyone ignored?
Well, last year was a really weird year. Disney Plus just was cranking out. It felt like Marvel project, Marvel project, Marvel project. None of them were fantastic. Some of them were pretty bad. So this year it's been like, or since then, the last several months now, it felt like nothing.
Right.
All we know is Secret Invasion is coming.
Well, part of the thing is Marvel was overreaching to stuff that people may not even want to watch. I mean, they just came out with the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur.
Oh, yeah.
I have no interest in watching that because I watch primarily Marvel live action.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever would have watched some of the programs. We've heard rumors that Echo and Agatha Coven of Chaos may not be being done anymore.
Well, we know the Marvels got pushed back to November as well. And
yeah, and I know Blade had problems and it was on hold because they had director issues. But
what's interesting is Marvel used to announce something and you could pretty much lock it in that it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. Now, not so much.
Maybe they tell you so much that if a few things get cut, it's not a big deal.
That seems to be the Star Wars way. Just announce a bunch of stuff. They'll be happy if they get one of them.
Disney wants to lean more into Star Wars and Marvel. Maybe they're telling Marvel they've gone a little over the top with the content costs. I mean, if they take a couple shows off the docket to make the shows that they are doing better, that's better for the company.
Well, I think that's a better idea.
Iger did an interview with CNBC, kind of talking about the changing approach to streaming and the path that they're trudging forward despite having all of these issues. One of the things that he said that was really important, and I'll put the whole quote here. Well, I think that one of the things that happened was we got maybe a little intoxicated by our subgrowth. We said 60 to 90 million subs in 5 years. We blew through that. We blew through that in a year, and suddenly everyone was on board with this meteoric sub rise, and that it would continue. We leaned into that because it seemed like that was the primary metric we'd be measured by. Now, we also said at the time we'd be profitable in 5 years, which is coincidentally at the end of 2024. We reiterated that yesterday on the call. So now as we've looked to basically become profitable and figured out how to do that, it's clear to us that we have to continue to grow subs, but it's not just about that. We have to have the right pricing. We have to have the right marketing. We have to have the right content. And if you go back to the structure that we've put in place, which is a direct linkage between the creative side and the distribution side, there is a greater likelihood that we'll have the right content. They'll make choices because they're accountable for delivering that profitability. This sounds like overall threats, honestly.
Well, how I interpret that is we're going to cut back the cost. We're going to make cheaper programs.
Maybe
we're
going
to up our
cheaper,
prices.
But not as many that aren't good.
Or that. But that's still less content, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to cut back our costs, produce less content, and raise prices. Should work.
Yeah, the raise prices part is, of course, what bothers me.
Good luck with that. Here's less stuff for more money.
But that could also mean that they might charge advertisers more, because remember, they did launch the ad-based service as well, where you have ads in your Disney Plus content.
Yes.
Yes, it's a cheaper tier, but they might be charging and seeking out more profitable advertisers.
Potentially. I think that means higher prices.
It most likely means higher prices, but there's really a cap on how much people are willing to pay for a streaming service per month.
Absolutely. I think
especially compared to all the choices that we have. I mean,
there's so many of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you start going higher than some of the higher tier priced ones that have more content than you, you're gonna lose subs.
Yeah, it would be hard to justify like spending more for one than say Netflix, which has so much content and continues to pump out content.
one thing that Netflix did right is they nurture their IPs. Stranger Things didn't come from it came from nowhere.
Yeah.
Stranger Things came from literally nowhere, and it's turned into a huge headliner for them. The Bridgerton romance novels, they're hugely successful on Netflix.
Yeah. Well, look at what Wednesday did. That was one of the biggest shows of the year. I mean, that's not their own, IP, but
they're nurturing the projects that they follow through on.
Yeah. But they do, I guess I should say, they make their own IPs, but they also do other IPs very well.
Yeah, and they're not afraid to put out a show for a season, and if it's not doing well enough, they just cancel it. They're done.
Which kind of sucks if you get vested in it, but yeah. But you get it.
But it's interesting because it does sound like he's also threatening the creative side of the industry. With the fact that he said they've got a direct linkage between the creative side and the distribution side, a greater likelihood that we'll have the right content. They'll make choices because they're accountable for delivering that profitability. He's putting a lot of accountability on the creative side. Saying, if you're not making something that's going to be profitable, you're not making something for us.
Then let them create the best they can. Let's stop,
stop
putting weird constraints on them.
Content.
Yeah.
So let them do what
Let them do what they do instead of, like I said, instead of putting any kind of constraints on them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Iger has deemed the company's plan to continue overall growth is to double down on the company's most successful brands, which are what garner the most interest in Disney Plus in the first place. He says, this company possesses some of the all-time great franchises. The 5 highest-grossing movies of all time came from this company. 2 of them are from Jim Cameron, Avatar. And obviously Marvel has contributed to that as well. These are stories, I guess you'd call them, that are very valuable globally, that are leverageable across multiple businesses of ours, and have long life. He has to look at it this way. I know you're chuckling, but he has to look at things as a businessman. That's why they brought him back.
I get it. But at the same time, you're talking about putting all the onus on the creators, and then you're talking about how it's just these properties that we can make money off of.
They're very valuable, yes, because of the...
Well, certainly.
Yeah, they have reach.
My point is, and I get it, he's a businessman, he needs to make money for the shareholders, or, that's bad, right? That's what his fiduciary responsibility of the shareholders, right? He has to make the money. I get that. But at the same time, what I don't think these numbers guys, these guys who, they're the MBAs and all that fun stuff, what they don't get is when you make something good, people want to love it and buy it. Mm-hmm. It's not just about how can we manipulate this franchise that we have to make money. You have to look at it from that creator side.
Right. He's trying to put the creative people to say, hey, you are in charge of doing this. You have to make something good because it has to be profitable.
Yes.
And they have to figure out what that means. Because he says these are valuable properties. I mean, Star Wars has merchandise. Star Wars has TV. Star Wars has movies. Attractions at parks. A hotel themed for them. Same thing goes with Avatar. Same thing goes with Marvel. Same thing goes with Frozen. Some of their bigger... Toy Story. They're big Pixar properties. These are more than just something you watch now. These are things you go out and you buy. These are things you go to a park to experience. And he needs those properties to be succeeding to drive the rest of the sales upward.
No, I get all that. I'm just saying what it stems from is the creators. You have to have a good quality. I don't care if you have a Star Wars land if I don't like Star Wars anymore.
That's very true.
If you can't make a good movie, if it takes you 5 years, 6 years to put out a movie because you can't figure out what to do with the franchise, we have a problem. Get the people into Lucasfilm. And you have some. You've got the Filonis and the Favreaus. But get the ones out of there who are not so much worried about making quality content, but are worried about other things, potentially. Get them out of there. Put smart people in there who know how to tell good stories and care about Star Wars, and it'll fix itself.
Well, instead of acquiring new things, maybe they should just double down and concentrate on what they have.
I absolutely agree with that. I think their biggest problem is they're spread so far out. Like, you're essentially competing against yourself in some ways. Like, right. I know there's a ton of overlap. Like, most people who like Marvel, like Star Wars, you have overlap. They're going to watch both. But in this weird sort of way, you do compete against yourself, right? Right.
Well, and they also there've been tickling rumors out there that they might be selling their rights to Hulu. They own 67% of the company. The other, 33% is owned by Comcast. They've been throwing feelers around about maybe just forcing the sale to get rid of the rest of it. They need to turn a profit, and maybe spreading themselves too thin wasn't the option that they should have taken.
No, they wanted a monopoly on the entertainment industry, essentially. Mm-hmm. And now they kind of have it. But now they realize there's only so much entertainment. There's a finite number of people and money to be made, right?
Yeah.
As much as, we sometimes want to talk about infinite growth, and it's not a spiel against capitalism here or anything like that, but there is finite numbers. There's finite amounts of things you can acquire. So when you're always talking about growing, sometimes maybe you just have to produce something really good and take what you can get, right?
Right. Well, here's a big ramble, huh?
Yeah, well, it was less of a ramble and more of a you kind of delivering the facts and trying to. I'm kind of glad that I didn't really ramble too much because just let people digest that and take away from it what they will instead of us trying to say, oh, Disney is terrible or Disney is great. Like
we're saying Disney is struggling, and here is why.
Yeah, here's the facts.
So you're an informed individual.
Yeah, I'll give you some little snippets of what I think, but what do you think? I think there's too much of like people when they try to report, they're just going to tell you what they think along with the news. No, just here's what it is. I'll give you my thoughts. You'll give us some thoughts as well here, Naboo, and you tell us what you think. All right, well, I think that is all we got for you this time. So now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell us what you think about the state of Disney from what you've heard here today or what you've heard from, elsewhere. Whatever the case may be, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Disney. And until next time, thanks for watching.